Another beautiful morning sa inyong mga students of Cebu Normal University, and welcome sa ato ang another discussion sa topic sa ato ang subject nga evolutionary biology. So ay lang magkatingalan nga the same nga ko ang gisulob sa atong topic number 4 because the same day ni nako giga-record. Okay, so we are now in topic number 5, which is entitled Extinction Events. So I hope that inyo hapong i-follow through ang inyong handout nga akong gihatag sa inyo because it's the same handout nga akong gigamit sa pag-discuss nako dinhi karon. So just an overview of what we discussed in topic number 4. It's all about the Earth's rock. So we know that na ay close affiliation ang study of evolution with that of geology because according to them the best witness of the past nga history sa natural world is are the rocks. Sila ang pinaka best nga witness. Okay, so mo to makita na to ang different fossils that can let us picture out what type of ecosystem nga kana siya nga mga organisms ni exist. Okay, so we also discuss katong mga different nga mga objections, say for example soft tissues, morphological stasis, the formation of canyons and katong sedimentary rocks nga within weeks lang or days or hours lang. So those are just some of the interesting objections against the deep time nga principles sa study of evolution. So this morning or today we are going to discuss different extinction events. So let's begin. Okay. Saan naman to? So, extinction is the elimination of the entire members of a species. Diba? It's actually a kanang gitawag natong common na nato karon nga hala na extinction. Okay, ni-extinct na siya nga organism. So, when you say extinction, if wala na isa ka representative for that species, we can say that that species is already extinct. Okay, so di na gila to makita. Okay? So, but there are instances nga ang kaning IUCN, if you are familiar with IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, declare nga this species is already extinct. Okay, pero na ay ni-resurface. That means to say naapay pag-asa if na ay extinction nga gi-declare ang IUCN, pwede pag yun siya nga ma-reverse siya if ma-rediscover siya. So mao na atong gihope nga ang katong mga na-declare nga extinct is ma-rediscover siya. Okay? So, mana atong hisgutan karon. So, extinction events or hence the genetic lineage mao lang ni ang when extinct yun, kung totally extinct or actually extinct na gyud siya, meaning to say ang iyahang genetic lineage is forever lost. So, dili na ma-establish ang kaning relationship from one organism to the other, di ba? Sa in terms sa taxonomy, extinction events are deemed part of the natural process. So, yung tag-extinction gani is it's part of nature akan gitawag tag extinction. Only that the problem with our world today is naana siya ay kana bang gipapaspas na nato ang extinction. Okay, gipapaspas na tong extinction. So we destroyed lots and lots of different habitats, di ba? Ang marine, at the same time ang forest nato is ato ang gi-convert into farmlands or kanang gi-urbanize nato. Okay, so pollution kada siya, those are the things nga unnatural. Okay, those are the things that are unnatural. Okay, so for a while lang kay naay nagtawag. Okay, for a while. Okay, so kana siya, so asa na to? So mao na nga ato ang kanang gitawag nga gipapaspas ang kanang gitawag natong extinction events. Okay? So mao lang na ang naka sad part sa ato ang sa ato ang existence karon. So we will also discuss some of the sudden arrival of the diversity of life, particularly the Avalon and Cambrian explosion. So mao na to ang i-discuss. Okay, so causes of extinction. So the the total species that live on Earth is about 2 to 4 billion. Okay, so mao na ang estimated nga total number of kanang gitawag natong species that actually lived dinhi sa ato ang planet. Okay, so karon tay sa hanay si panawag. Okay, so kana siya. So mao nang ato. So karon there are approximately at least 20 million sa ato ang current. Okay, so makita nato nga there are just millions and millions of species that went extinct sa ato ang natural history. So that 2 to 4 billion ranges from microscopic to macroscopic species. So the existing number of surviving species is only about 1% of the total number of species to have lived. So mao na 1% lang sa kanang ato karon. So mao na nga ibutang tag 2 billion, so 200 million. So mao na 20 million. So mao na nga 1%, around 20 million species lang na karon. So note that every species, whether it is pathogenic microbe or the gentle dolphins, all played crucial ecological roles. So even ang kanang mga viruses nato, okay? So part na siya sa nature ang mga viruses. So tanan gyud nga species is naa siya role sa ato ang environment. Okay? Only that nga ato ang gitouch ang balance between this kaning mga relationship. So ang uban is gipagamay nato, ang uban gipadaghan nato. So mao na nga naay imbalance, mao na nga na occurrence of diseases and kaning introduce ng mga species, mga predation, I mean hinana ba, so chaotic ang ato ang ecosystem. So extinction, okay, is the elimination of a certain taxon, usually at the species level. This means that a certain species can nowhere be found and reproduction is impossible. So mao na nga mawala na ang genetic lineage. So mawala ang isa ka taxon. So say for example, ang usual is sa species nga level man. So pwede pod nga at the genus level is gi wipe out na nimo, pwede po na siya, pwede ganig sa kanang gitawag tong class. Okay, pero dinagko na gyud na siya nga event kung at the class level and or higher nga mga taxa. So through extinction, though extinction is a natural event, say for example species poor reproduction rate, natural calamities, natural environment changes. So kini siya mao ni ang kuan ha, ang natural nga causes of extinction kanang kana siya species poor productiveness, natural calamities, natural environment. The increased anthropological activities can influence the rate of extinctions. So mao na nga daghan ang kanang gitawag nato anthropological event. So ang human activities, okay, so maka-influence na siya and makita nato sa ato ang gitawag nga kanang panahon karon nga taas na kaayo ang kaning anthropological level. So activities can include hunting, destruction of habitat, say for example pollution, conversion of lands, and introduction of invasive species. So mao na ang kaning gitawag nato nga some of the anthropological events. Okay, so common kani din sa Pilipinas daw naatay Department of Environment and Natural Resources, pero we really do not care in total both sa government and sa private sa ato. So mao na nga naay daghan kayong damage environmentally nga makita nato sa ato ang nasod. Okay, so conversion of lands, mao na whether it is for agricultural lands or sa urbanization. So an introduction of invasive species, and I think you already have an idea what an invasive species is, because we have already discussed that one. So characteristics of extinction events. So based on the fossil records, there were approximately 6 mass extinctions that spans the supposed 4.5 billion years of natural history. So some extinction events wiped out 90% of species. So mana kung gi-mention nga it's a natural process, and then imagine mo tag 90% of species ang ma-wipe out. So many believe that natural extinctions paved way for the formation of novel species. So mao na nga since na ay gap, I mean if a species hinani sa kuan sa environmental science, if ang usa ka species or ang isa ka taxon is ma-wipe out siya, okay, so it is an opportunity that newer taxons or taxa can be formed, okay, or novel species can be formed kay naa may mahawangan ba, di ba, muhawang siya na siya vacancy. So kung naay vacancy, it's an opportunity for newer species nga to occupy that vacant role sa ecosystem. So mao na nga, if naay mo extinct, okay, naapoy mo speciate, okay, hinana na siya ang principle din na. So after the elimination of several species, it is believed that there are several niches that needs to be filled. Thus, the surviving species were thought to underwent rapid speciation to occupy the almost vacant environment. Okay, so during this time, species were enjoying high reproductive success since there are more food but less competition. Mao po na siya ang mahitabo, di ba? And makita man ni nato nga, say for example, though dili siya mo extinct, pero makita nato sa ato ang current nga mga events, say for example kanang forest fires, di ba? Ang forest fires is maka-eliminate na sila huge number of population of this species, di ba? Pwede nga na siya wipe out na siya og entire populations gyud. So nay uban nga ginagmay nga mga maka-survive. And then makita nato nga after forest fires or even volcanic eruption, makita nato nga kanang mas kanang lush na ang life, okay, mas nindot ang not mas kuan, pero makita nato nga ma-revive ang kanang gitawag natong ecosystem of that particular location. Okay, kay siguro sa forest fire is iyahang gibalik mangud gi-reset niya into zero, almost zero ang status sa environment. That is why ang katong mga ni dominant na mga species is gibalik siya sa kuan nga equal na tanan. Say for example, ang mga insects, mga plants, equal na kay ni reset na siya og zero. So the same is true with extinction. Naay vacancy, so naay equal opportunity of other species nga mo propagate or mo speciate, kay naaman siya vacancy sa niche, sa ecological niche. Okay, so mo na ang kuan sa extinction. So during this time, species were enjoying high reproductive success since there were more food but less competition. Kay mo to akong gi-mention na reset siya og zero. So migration from one niche to the other paved the way for the formation of new species, thus the connection of extinction and evolution. So mao po na ang extinction of evolution. Okay. So below are the different extinction events and their characteristics. So mao ni ang different extinction events. So di ba na ay 6 identified nga extinction events. So say for example, Ordovician. Okay, so species extinct, 86% species and 50% sa the species level, 50% of the genera nga taxon ang na-wipe out. So kani siya mga trilobites, corals, brachiopods, na siya. So these are now the causes. Devonian, 75 species ang ni-extinct, 35% sa genera. So climate shift due to Siberian volcanic eruption reduced oxygen level, nangawala the placoderms, surviving trilobites and other corals. The Permian, 96%, so imagine nimo 96% sa species ang nawala and 56% sa genera. Okay, so sa mga forests, amphibians, cyanopids. Triassic, Jurassic. Okay, so 80% sa species and 47% sa genera. The Cretaceous Tertiary, okay, 76% and 40% sa genera. Okay, so dinosaurs, ammonites, and mollusks din hinas Cretaceous. So mga Jurassic Park is mo din 80%, daghan sila. So di ba nga katong asteroid daw, pero nakita nato nga they were wiped out because of massive amount of water nga ni-bury sa ilaha. Okay, so mao siya ang 6. So ang karon ang ika-7, there are those who are identifying that we are now facing a modern extinction event. Okay, so unknown pa pila because many believe nga kanang it's still ongoing. So cause anthropogenic activities, population growth, land conversion, pollution, and hunting. So several species, could it be that we are included in the extinct nga species, nga taxon ang humans, di ba? So modern extinction, that is still questionable. Okay, so dirita sa Avalon explosion. So we are done actually with kaning gitawag yun na tong extinction event. So it's an opportunity for other organisms to speciate and occupy the vacant nga niche of the ecosystem ang kaning gitawag nato nga extinction events. Okay? So, Avalon explosion. So, so when you say the Avalon explosion is considered as the second Big Bang. Okay? So, the first Big Bang, what is the first Big Bang? That's the Big Bang of the occurrence of the universe, di ba? Motong Big Bang. The second Big Bang is the Avalon explosion. And this is the Big Bang, the first to explode in the biological world. Nga naman, unsa may naas sa gitawag natong Avalon explosion. So, it was named after the Avalon Peninsula in Canada and is part of the Precambrian biota. So, di ba, remember sa katong geologic time scale? Okay, sa Precambrian. So, that's part of the lowest nga layer sa sedimentary rocks or sa geological time scale, ang Precambrian biota. So, named after the Avalon Peninsula. So, Avalon explosion is proposed by paleontologists from Virginia Tech. So, this event saw the first sudden appearance of complex multicellular and bizarre Ediacaran biota some 574 million years ago. Organisms show distinct morphologies from the Cambrian biota. Okay, so di ba sa katong Cambrian explosion. So napadini gitawag na tong Avalon explosion. So this Avalon explosion is much earlier than the Cambrian explosion. However, this Avalon explosion already showed multicellular and at the same time complex nga mga life forms. So meaning to say, they thought man good sa una, they thought that ang the Cambrian nga mga organisms have their ancestors down sa Precambrian. But kung tan-an natong sa Precambrian as what is exposed sa kaning Avalon explosion, multicellular na siya at the same time complex na siya. So meaning to say na pag earlier pag di ay. Okay? And then complex and then diverse na. Okay, so there are approximately 200 Ediacaran species identified which is connected sa Avalon explosion. Meaning to say, as of the moment, these Ediacaran species are those that are the part of the earliest nga organisms if we based it on the geological time scale. So this makes the biota found in the Ediacara the oldest known living organism, some supposed to be the ancestors of existing species. However, species in the Ediacara were already complex and do not have their ancestors. So, the same problem with the Cambrian explosion. Okay, so wala sila'y ancestor. So, this makes a serious question against evolution and its dogma on gradualism. So, where do they get their being multicellular or being complex? Diba? Because it is expected nga at least 1 billion years ago ni occur ang Avalon explosion, but why is it nga they are already complex and they are already multicellular? Okay, so in addition, the body plan of the Ediacaran seem to be consistent all throughout their existence, making them more controversial. So there is no gradual changes that can be found in the Ediacaran fossil records. So, di ba, remember the morphological stasis? The body plan of the Ediacaran seem to be consistent all throughout their existence. So, Ediacaran body plans are similar to modern-day jellyfishes, corals, and sea anemones. Okay? So, here's the mass extinction. This is just a summary of the mass extinction. So, here, 60%, 95%. Okay, and ongoing, probable. Okay, so padung ta sa 7th mass extinction which is threatening the Homo sapiens. Okay, so here, the Ediacaran. Here are some of the projected images of the Ediacaran flora and fauna. Okay, show the existence of complex life forms without any known evolutionary ancestors. Diba? Kay, kung makita magod nato din diba, bilateral symmetry or ang radial symmetry in this case. So, kung makita nato ang mga body plans man gud nga radial and kanang gitawag natong symmetrical symmetry, okay, nga mga body plans is complex na siya nga behavior or nga characteristics. Ang kanang gitawag natong asymmetrical, pwede na natong ma-contribute or ma-point na nato sa kanang gitawag natong mga less nga complex nga mga behavior. Pero sa Ediacaran nga period pa lang, okay, sa Precambrian period sa mga Ediacaran, okay, they are already showing multicellular nga mga behaviors, and at the same time bilateral ang ilang symmetry. Okay, so they occurred during the Avalon explosion, sudden, without any traces of their supposed ancestor. So mo na problem karon sa gradualism. Okay, so part na siya sa gatong gitawag nga Avalon explosion. Here comes the Cambrian explosion. Okay, so Cambrian explosion is the third Big Bang. Okay, again, the first Big Bang is the occurrence of the universe. The second Big Bang is the Avalon explosion. And the third Big Bang is the Cambrian explosion. So next to Avalon explosion, kay ang Avalon explosion is pre-Cambrian man. So the Cambrian explosion is the Cambrian, which was thought to occur about 541 million years ago. This lasted for about 13 to 25 million years. So, nakataas ng 13 to 25 million years. But if you are going to compare it with 541 million or billions of years, that is a small time frame. Okay, so primarily, the gap between Avalon and Cambrian explosions was approximated in millions of years. However, recent data suggests that it was only 400,000 years. Okay, so mas ni mubo pa gyud siya. Okay, so very samot na siya nakasaden. Okay, so this event was already known among naturalists centuries before Darwin. So known na ang Cambrian explosion. So similar to Avalon explosion, the Cambrian explosion saw a sudden diversification of life forms in a relatively short period of time. In addition, the unique body plans, highly distinct from that of the Ediacaran, started to exist. Okay, so uniqueness gihapon, the same ang similar ang iyang characteristics sa Avalon, only that those that existed, that suddenly exist in the Cambrian explosion have distinct body parts. Okay, lahi siya sa Avalon. So meaning to say, there is no connection between the changes of the Avalon or the pre-Cambrian flora and fauna. Okay, walay connection to that of the Avalon explosion or the Cambrian explosion. Okay, so wala siya connection. Meaning to say, distinct ni siya ang Avalon, distinct po ni siya ang pre-Cambrian. There is no connection that the ancestors of those that exist in the Cambrian explosion came from the pre-Cambrian. Okay, hinana siya, and then it suddenly appeared sa natural history without any traces of ancestors. Kanang mga gradual nga mag-changes, no. Okay, and take note that Charles Darwin recognized this problem, and that problem persists even until today. So higher degree of complexities were found in the Cambrian biota. Like what happened in the first explosion, the complex life forms that popped into existence in the Cambrian explosion hardly have ancestors. So mana atong mention ganiha. So several of the existing body plants and phyla already existed here. So say for example, sa Cambrian, take note sa Cambrian explosion, ni-occur na dito ang echinoderms, ang annelids, ang porifera, ang chordates, arthropoda, ang brachiopoda, the mollusca. All of these are already suddenly existed din sa Cambrian explosion without any traces at all. Okay? And all of these, take note, echinoderms, annelids, kaning ato ang gipang-mention nga mga phyla. Okay? All of these are already complex. Okay, so all of which do not have traces of evolutionary ancestor based on the fossil record. Okay, so the immense fossil deficiency that connects complex organisms to its supposed ancestors that can support slow and gradual process of evolution is a big challenge to Darwin. This case is interestingly special when Darwin and other naturalists before him, like Linnaeus, believe in the principle of natura non facit saltus, or nature does not make jumps. So mao ni ang kaning gitawag natong dilema ni Darwin. Kaning gitawag natong natura non facit saltus. So nature doesn't make jumps, meaning to say gradual ang changes sa usa ka organism from one form to another, from simple to complex, gradual na siya. But makita nato that there is this jump. Okay, there is this jump from simple to complex without any traces at all. Okay, so mo nang gitawag siya og does not make jumps. Pero why is it nga there are jumps nga nahitabo? Say for example, from zero life forms, okay, to the Avalon explosion, that's jump. From From the Avalon explosion to the Cambrian explosion, that's also a jump without any connections to a supposed ancestor. Okay? So, mo na nga non-natural, non-facet saltos, or nature does not make jump, but nature really make some jumps. Okay? So, pangutana din ta nga do we really need a new theory to explain the origin of life aside from the Darwinian view of how life originated? Okay, so though others consider the Cambrian explosion as an evolutionary innovation, still it cannot account how complex life forms arrive in the natural world. Okay? Dili siya maka-account sa kanang gitawag natog how life forms arrived in the natural world. Mauna nga for some who questions the Darwinian view of how life originated, they said that evolution may explain the diversity of life. Yes, it can explain, and I agree with that. It can explain with how or the diversity of life, but it can never explain the arrival of life. Okay, dili niya ma-explain ang evolution how life arrived sa atong planet. Okay, so many assume that the Cambrian biota went extinct due to extreme climate change that affected the oceanic environmental parameters. Note that the Cambrian biota are almost exclusively found in the ocean. Diba? Pila to ka percent ang ato ang 95% of the fossils that we have are marine organisms. So though fossils from the Cambrian period can be retrieved in different parts of the world, the most notable Cambrian fossil deposits are in the Burgess Shale, which is in Canada, and the Mount Tianshan Shale in China. And the Mount Tianshan Shale has the most complex species to date. Okay, so perti yung kadaghan ang kaning gitawag nato nga Cambrian nga fossils. So, kung daghan ang Burgess nga shale nga fossils, mas daghan and mas complex ang sa Mount Tianshan Shale, okay, which can be found in China. So makita nato din di ba kato atong gidiscuss sa topic number 4 nga mas daghan kag makuha sa larger landmass. So this Canada Burgess Shale is found in North America, a very massive landmass, and Mount Tianshan Shale in mainland China, a very large landmass. So both Avalon and Cambrian explosions were controversial as it seems to defy the gradual model of the origin of life and its notions of common ancestry. So say for example here, the Dickinsonia fossil, an animal of the Ediacaran fauna. So makita nato din it exhibited complexity, okay? Complex siya, multicellular siya, which is a complex characteristic, and at the same time exhibited a kaning bilateral symmetry. Okay? Kana siya. So here, the Cambrian explosion saw the sudden appearance of more diverse and complex life forms similar to the Avalon explosion. Organisms here do not have evolutionary ancestors. Okay. So what else? Here, this is actually from the Cambrian fauna. Okay? So take a look at this one here. Apes. This is an animal. Okay? And then it's already complex. This one here is another species, complex. Here's another complex. Here, though they are already extinct, but even though that they are already extinct, yet they showed complexity. Okay, so say for example, all of this kaning atong gipakita din they are actually found in the Cambrian period, and there is no way, okay, and then no other traces of their origin to their supposed ancestor. They just suddenly appear. Okay, why do birds suddenly appear? Okay, but the same is true with this. Why do trilobites and other complex organisms suddenly appear? Mao nang gitawag siyang explosion, and they are just a handful of the thousands of different life forms that existed suddenly in the Cambrian and in the Avalon explosion. Okay, so mo ni din take a look at this one. So the evolutionary tree, according, if we strictly follow what can be found in the fossil records, kung i-follow nato ang without any hypothesis, plainly based on what were found in the fossil records, mao ni ang hitabo. Okay, so kini siya ni-exist na ni kaning straight line nga red. Okay? Ni-exist ni siya sa take a look at this one, the Idyakaran, ni-exist ni siya. Some of these that are found in the Idyakaran, the Precambrian period, very very old. Okay? Makita nato din nga ni persist siya even during the Cambrian. Okay? Ang Cambrian is here, kining light green nga shaded area. Makita nato din nga daghan majority of the phyla that existed today are already found, can already be found as early as the Idyakaran. Say for example, kaning the Cnidarians, di ba? Cnidarians, they are marine organisms. It already existed during the Precambrian hangtod nga ni persist siya hangtod today. Okay? Naalang gyud uban nga mga phyla nga ni extinct. Say for example, kini siya din Okay? Ni extinct. Okay? But majority of the phyla that we have today, okay, suddenly existed during the Cambrian. The annelids, Brachiopoda, Mollusca, Platyhelminthes, Arthropoda, even sa kaning chordates here. Okay, ni-exist siya. And take note nga these are actually based on the fossils that were found. And there is, kung makita ginato din kung ato ni i-analyze og maayo, okay, kining mga broken lines mao ni ang kanang gitawag natong hypothesis that they are connected. So say for example, di ba sa evolution, okay? So this is one phylogenetic tree or phylogeny. Okay? Kani po is lahi ni siya nga mga group. Okay? But there is no other fossils that can connect them. Okay? So ni-exist lang yun na siya nga ni-exist. Okay? So meaning to say, ang kana ding ato ang belief nga kanang naay ancestor nga kani nga group, ang iyang ancestor is kini siya nga group is relative ni si ani, do not or cannot be supported by the fossil evidences that we have today. Okay? Wala na nato kay that's plainly hypothesis na siya. Okay? That's hypothesis, meaning to say that is an educated guess, but it is not supported by the evidences that can be found in the fossil record. So meaning to say, kini siya, there is no, kung tanaw na to, we can question the phylogenetic tree, di ba? Based on the fossil records. Okay, we can ask the question, where do they come from? If they do not have these supposed ancestors, where do they come from? How they came to be? Okay, kana siya. So a diagram that represents the existence of diverse life forms that do not conform to the expected gradual Darwinian evolution, hence no traced ancestors. Okay, so mao na siya nga katong gikan sa bottom hangtod ni speciate, hangtod nagbranch. So hinana siya, that is that can be questioned. Okay, so here comes another version of evolution by Stephen Jay Gould and Niles Eldredge in the 1970s. They call this one as the punctuated equilibrium. It proposes an evolutionary model that describes the stability of a species population once it appears in the fossil record. So, in contrast with Darwin's gradualism of slow and steady formation of species from molecules to organisms, punctuated equilibrium assumes that species were already in existence. This is to reconcile the ever-puzzling absence of ancestors of complex organisms in the Idyakaran and the Cambrian biota as shown in the fossil record. So, ang sa kaning gitaw nga tong punctuated equilibrium, kay di man gyud bisag unsaon og tan-aw ni Stephen Jay Gould. By the way, Stephen Jay Gould is the most respected nga paleontologist, evolutionary biologist, and at the same time paleontologist sa ato ang generation karon. He is the most respected, together with Niles Eldredge. Bisag unsaon nila og settle, di man gid na nila ma-settle nga naay common ancestry nga mahitabo. Okay? Kay di man gyud ma-trace nga naay gradual nga development. So ang ilang gi-propose is punctuated equilibrium. This is actually a punctuated equilibrium according to Niles Eldredge nga ni-exist siya. Okay, suddenly ni-exist siya and then ni-speciate. Okay? Nawala na po. So, there's another nga na-exist na po na siya. Or pwede siya nga nagdungan siya nga together, they existed. And then, by the time nga ni-exist ang kaning complex nga organisms, ay siya ni-speciate. Na-stabilize na pong environment, speciate na pod. Stabilize, speciate na pod. So that's punctuated equilibrium. But if you are going to closely study the punctuated equilibrium, still it cannot answer where did life come from. Okay? Kay gi-assume man sa punctuated equilibrium nga ni-exist na siya, ay siya ni-develop. Okay? Say for example, different phyla ni-exist together. Okay? Develop in their own time. Okay? So that's punctuated equilibrium. So in another time frame, is nanapoy ni-exist suddenly without any trace. Then, ni speciate siya and then mo na ni diversify. That is punctuated equilibrium. So this theory proposes that the rapid diversification of life forms left meager number of fossils. This model proposes that once species appeared in the fossil record, their population becomes stable and may persist further into the timeline of natural history with little changes before bursting into rapid speciation again. So man to akong gimension, ni-exist siya suddenly ang complex niya and then speciate kay ni stable yung population. Kung dili gani kayo siya nindot ang environment, okay, gamay ang speciation. But if the environment stabilizes or favorable, paspas ang ihang diversification. Okay? Kan mo, di ba katong gitawag katong sudden nga kaning speciation, katong na speciation events. So punctuated equilibrium may answer diversification of life forms, yet it cannot account how the first complex species came into existence. So, mao na akong emphasize balik that evolution may answer the diversity of life, but it cannot answer the arrival of life. Okay? So, in other versions, evolution may answer the origin of species, but cannot answer the arrival of species. Okay? So, this is one of the punctuated equilibrium according to Niles Eldredge. So kana siya stable siya. So since kani siya dili favorable ang kuan, stabilize lang na siya, and then once nga favorable ang environment, it speciate, okay? And then persist throughout the time and then speciate kung favorable, speciate. So that's Niles Eldredge nga kanang gitawag nato nga version, okay? Compared to the gradualism. So this is Darwinian. Okay, this is punctuated equilibrium. Makita na to nga there is no in the punctuated equilibrium, because this is solely based on fossil records. This one is based on assumption. Okay, so makita na to nga sa punctuated equilibrium, you cannot really establish a kaning conventional nga phylogenetic tree nga makita na to sa textbook nga kini ancestor ni branch. No, because this again, this is not supported by the fossil records. So kung plainly fossil records lang ato ang gibasihan, this is what it looks like. Okay, this is punctuated equilibrium as proposed by Stephen Jay Gould. Okay, so I hope nakuha to ninyo. Okay, so Stephen Jay Gould's view on Darwinian gradualism is this. So mao ni ang kaning gitawag nato nga statement ni Stephen Jay Gould. Okay, so according to him, the extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as the trade secret of paleontology. The evolutionary trees that adorn our textbooks have data only at the tips and nodes of their branches. The rest is inference, however reasonable, not the evidence of fossils. So, mao na akong gimension nga ang Darwinian nga katong phylogenetic tree, inference siya and dili siya based on fossil records. Yet Darwin was so wedded to gradualism that he wagered his entire theory on the denial of this literal record. So mo ni quote ni ni Stephen Jay Gould si Darwin, kay si Darwin kanang wedded kanang kung ang gyud siya ba, obsessed gyud siya, believe gyud siya sa iyahang kuan, sa iyahang theory on gradualism. But mo ni ang giingon ni Charles Darwin, the geological record is extremely imperfect, and this will, to a large extent, explain why we do not find interminable varieties connecting together all the extinct and existing forms of life by the finest graduated steps. He who rejects these views on the nature of geological record will rightly reject my whole theory. Okay, so man kung basihan gyud nato kung strictly kanang evidence gyud siya ba, okay, kung evidence is here, we can reject the theory of Charles Darwin. Okay, because mo na nga nga gireject ni Stephen Jay Gould entirely ang kang Darwin because di man siya supported sa geological record. So Darwin's arguments, kung to continue the uh, view of Stephen Jay Gould. So according to Stephen Jay Gould, Darwin's argument still persists as the favored escape of most paleontologists from the embarrassment of a record that seems to show so little of evolution. In exposing its cultural and methodological roots, I wish in no way to impugn the potential validity of gradualism, for all general views have similar roots. I wish only to point out that it was never seen in the rocks. So, di gini mo makita. Okay? So, paleontologists have paid an exorbitant price for Darwin's argument. We fancy ourselves as the only true students of life history, yet to preserve our favored account of evolution by natural selection, we view our data as so bad that we never see the process we profess to study. So that's according to Stephen Jay Gould sa iyang book nga Evolution's Erratic Pace. Okay, so mo na nga, we never see the very process we profess to study. You can never see in the fossil records that there is gradualism that occurs. So this is Stephen Jay Gould. Okay, so mana. Okay, so that's the kuan. That's our discussion for this topic. So makita nato nga yes na extinction, but this extinction kung i-base yun nato siya sa fossil records tell of a different view of how life originated. And I hope, okay, I hope nga you will consider the things that were questioned, okay, especially with regard sa kanang gitawag na tong theory of the origin of life sa Darwinian evolution, because the objections or the observations by Stephen Jay Gould, Luis Agassiz is also a very prominent nga paleontologist, are the same. Okay, so kung makita nimo ang history between Agassiz and Darwin, si Darwin iyang gi-recruit si Agassiz because Luis Agassiz is a very prominent geologist and paleontologist nga kanang iya habang gikuan ba gi-recruit nga to believe in his theory. But Luis Agassiz was so firm that you cannot see gradualism in the fossil records. Why would I believe in your theory? That's Luis Agassiz. The same is true with Stephen Jay Gould. And take note nga, that's 200 years difference from Luis Agassiz to Stephen Jay Gould. Approximately 200 years difference na siya. So what was being observed by Luis Agassiz and Stephen Jay Gould is similar, that you can never ever find gradualism in the fossil records, as opposed to what Darwin believed nga life is actually slowly and gradually evolving from simple to complex. Okay, so I hope you can actually consider these things. Okay, read a lot. Okay, and then you balance what you believe, especially that you are in the natural sciences. Okay, so I think that's all, and see you on the next topic. Bye bye.